You know that feeling when you're stuck between two really good options and choosing feels less about a pros and cons list and more like you're choosing between two totally different lives? It's this hidden conflict, right? A feeling of being split in two. Well, today we're going to dive deep into that internal divide, a blind spot that quietly steers our biggest decisions without us even seeing it. And this feeling of, misalignment, it's not just in our heads. It actually starts with a much bigger issue in our society. The anthropologist David Graeber found that up to 40% of workers believe their job makes absolutely no meaningful contribution to the world. Let that sink in. 40%. That is a huge number of people feeling a deep disconnect between what they do every day and what actually matters. So what Graeber's work is really saying is that this isn't some personal failure, it's a feature of the system we've built. We're often stuck in roles that just feel pointless. And that creates this deep psychological friction. It really sets the stage for the kind of internal conflict we're going to unpack. Because how can you know who you are when what you do all day feels like it means nothing? Okay, so if we're all surrounded by this feeling of pointlessness, how do we even start to think clearly? Well, the problem is that our own inner signal, what we truly want, is constantly being drowned out by a ton of noise, both from the outside world and from inside our own heads. A really key idea here is something called cognitive load. Think of your brain like a computer with a limited amount of RAM. When you have too many tabs open, too much useless information, and all these conflicting demands, everything just slows down. Your ability to make clear, authentic decisions just tanks. You're just too mentally exhausted to even hear your own thoughts. And here's the thing, this is not an accident. Our world today is just filled with what Jake Knapp and John Zeratsky call infinity pools. You know exactly what I'm talking about. Your social media feeds, the news apps that never stop refreshing, they are literally engineered to keep you hooked. They are absolute masters of creating noise, making it almost impossible to focus on the big questions about our own lives. But all this noise doesn't just distract us. It actually does something much, much weirder. It activates different and often competing versions of ourselves. So for a while now, I've been using AI as a kind of cognitive mirror. The goal isn't for it to think for me, but to help me see how I think. And on day 23 of this whole project, I gave it 2 of my own product ideas. Both seemed totally viable. I was just hoping to get some clarity. But what I got back was, well, it was something way more profound. Now, check this out. On the exact same day, I'm exploring both of these ideas. For the first one, Progress Companion, my prompts are all patient and curious. How might users experience this? But for the second one, Trilingual Eloquence, my entire tone changes. The questions become urgent, anxious, almost defensive. Will this scale? Is this defensible? It was the same person, me. But it was like 2 completely different selves showed up to talk to the AI. And this is the crucial part. The AI's feedback was positive and balanced for both ideas. It thought they both had potential. So the big revelation, the big aha moment, wasn't in what the AI told me. The mirror was in my own questions. The AI was just a neutral sounding board. It was my own prompts that revealed this deep internal split I didn't even know I had. So to figure out what was going on, I started looking for a framework, and this quote from Naval Ravikant just hit me like a ton of bricks. He says, we're all playing one of 2 big games in life. The money game, which is about creating real value, or the status game, which is all about how other people see us. And this just laid it all out perfectly. It explained the 2 selves in my prompts. The Progress Companion idea, that was my value game self showing up. The part of me focused on service, on the long-term process. But the trilingual idea, that triggered my status game self, the one who's worried about perception, ego, and getting that short-term validation. I realized the choice was never between 2 products. It was between 2 completely different games. So I'm just going to call this thing the identity split. It's that state where we think we're just logically weighing our options, but what's really happening is we're making this unconscious choice between which future version of ourselves we're going to nurture and which one we're going to let fade away. Alright, so if this split is so powerful, why on earth is it so hard to see? Well, it's because our own minds have these built-in blind spots, cognitive biases that are basically designed to keep this exact conflict hidden from us. Okay, first up, you've got the sunk cost fallacy. We've all felt this. Once we've put even a little bit of time or emotion into an idea or an identity, it becomes incredibly hard to just let it go. We tell ourselves, well, I've come this far, I can't quit now, even when it's clearly the wrong path. It keeps us stuck wrestling with options for way longer than we should. And what makes it even harder is something called loss aversion. Psychologically, the pain of losing something feels about twice as strong as the pleasure of gaining something. Now imagine that something you might lose is a potential future version of yourself. The choice becomes terrifying. Abandoning one of those paths feels like this huge, profound loss, and it keeps us completely paralyzed. And look, this isn't just some new agey idea I came up with. This stuff is incredibly well documented. Psychologists have been talking about our possible selves for decades. They've written about the anxiety that comes from the gap between our real self and our ideal self. And research shows that having multiple sub-selves is just a normal part of our mental wiring. My identity split wasn't a bug, it was a feature of being human. So seeing all of this just reframes the entire problem. This was never a simple business decision about which product to build. No, it was about something way, way deeper. The famous management expert Peter Drucker once said that effective people are effective because they say no. And he wasn't just talking about saying no to meetings. The real hard challenge is saying no to potential versions of yourself. Every big yes in your life is also a really profound no. When I went back and looked at the data, the answer was just hiding in plain sight. The AI said the external data, the market potential, was basically the same for both ideas. That was the noise. But my internal data, the tone of my prompts, my anxieties, my curiosities, that was the signal. My behavior was revealing what my conscious mind was trying so hard to hide. And there is a very real cost to choosing in a way that serves the wrong self. Psychologically, it creates this constant low-grade anxiety. Practically, you just can't keep pushing over the long haul if you're not genuinely aligned. And on a neural level, every action you take literally strengthens the pathways for oneself, while the other one gets weaker and harder to access. In the end, the tiebreaker was a feeling in my gut. When I imagined the day-to-day grind on the service-oriented project, I felt this sense of relief, like I was coming home. But when I imagined building the status-oriented one, I just felt pressure, like I was being forced to climb a mountain I didn't even want to be on. My body knew the right answer long before my brain was ready to hear it. And I have to be really honest with you here. As of today, day 23, having this awareness hasn't magically fixed the problem. I still haven't chosen. But what it has done is make the true cost of the choice crystal clear. You see, the point of this whole project was never to find a neat solution, but to accurately document the problem. The two ideas, the two selves, the split itself is the data. And that leaves me, and maybe it leaves you too, with the real question. It's not what should I do? The real question is, who am I willing to become? And maybe just as importantly, which version of myself am I absolutely terrified to let go of? That's the choice that really defines us.